up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the BFF show. My name is Brendan.
I'm Franco.
And today's topic is coming from Franco, who texted me this morning. Normally we try to sit, we don't plan this really well. We sit maybe for the first 15 minutes when we get on the camera with each other, we chit-chat, and then we go into trying to figure out what the show's about and how we're going to actually do it. Which this time I was pleasantly surprised because we should be doing this regularly, like real people when they do shows. But Franco actually came in with a topic that I really thought was funny. And it's going to be funny for a variety of reasons, but we'll wait on why it's going to be super funny for all of you in a minute. But Franco, what is that topic for today?
Wow, that was a long intro. We are going to go ahead and go with a little more, not so much time sensitive, because we're actually filming ahead of schedule now. For once, we're ahead of the buck on shows. So we're going to go with our favorite players, with the caveat that they had to be players you watched play while you were a sports fan.
Yes.
And that's going to be funny for Brendan, and he'll explain why in 1 second.
So let's make it. We'll show why it's funny right now. Franco, when did you start watching sports?
I want to say probably in '92 when my mom married my stepdad, and that's kind of when my dad also got me into sports. I think I went to my first Giants game in '92, with Royce Clayton and Will Clark, that era of Giants baseball. And actually, no, I also saw Timberwolves versus the Warriors in the Timberwolves' very first season. So '92 is my frame of reference.
Mine is 2007 because I wasn't interested in sports as a kid. You and I in college watched some sports in 2002 on, but I feel like if I'm really being honest, and you can know this too, and you can co-sign this, it was really 2007 when I was able to actually, I felt like, articulate sports to you, as opposed to what we were doing in 2002, where you were like, here, this is basketball, this is how they play it, baseball, look at this. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. And in 2007, when I got my job the first time in college, I actually moved away for the first time in my life, and I didn't have anything else to do but watch ESPN constantly. And I would watch all the baseball games that they had, and I was like, ooh, NBA, ooh, this is fun. NFL, oh, let me dedicate my whole Sunday to this is fun. And then I finally was able to start understanding why it's fun and actually get involved. So when we talk about our favorite players, I'm going to be skewed toward New York for sure, just because that's all that I consumed. You're going to be more historical and actually have more logical and probably stronger players to defend than me, because I'm going to probably be a homer, and I'm also going to be one that, just based on the fact in 2007 I watched the most of, and they were the most popular at the time. So mine are going to be standard, I feel like, and not really that interesting. Yours is going to be more interesting to talk about. So we'll start with the more interesting first. So Franco, who in the NBA, this is in your wheelhouse, man. NBA, Who is your favorite player? Okay,
so for all these I did two, because I'm an overachiever.
You are an overachiever. I have two for NBA.
Okay. I did a player that everybody will know, and then a player that maybe Bay Area sports people will know, a little more obscure. So for my player that everybody will know, I think my favorite mainstream recognized player is easily Dennis Rodman. And we can forget the North Korea stuff, maybe leave a decade behind. But Dennis Rodman was on the Pistons, was a workman-like player. And people forget how much he did for that community. There's this great story when Dennis Rodman first hit his first pro contract. He used to work, I think it was in an airport, as a janitor. And the first thing he did was go back to his staff as a janitor and give money to all those people he worked with. That's the kind of stories you can't beat. And then he just was all effort all the time under the basket. People forget how short compared to other forwards he was. He was relative, I think 5 or 6 inches shorter than the average forward at that time, and he just outworked dudes. And so I think that kind of workman effort, and then his personality was so over the top, and I loved that. So Dennis Rodman is my mainstream guy. And you want to go your mainstream, then we'll alternate here. Planning.
My mainstream, and you're going to kill me, LeBron James. Only because that's all that I could see in 2007 on was LeBron James. The decision was almost 10 years ago. I think it's actually 8 years ago, so we're coming up soon on that decade. And I think that's the one player that was all-consuming in sports media from the moment he stepped on the court till even today. Everything he does, especially now as social media, is tracked and talked about. So before it was kind of cliche, I guess, in the sports media, where it's the debate between, is LeBron really great? Is he better than Mike? It was more just LeBron is the best thing that's happening in this moment. And that's for me when I started watching the NBA, just to watch this guy dominate the way that he did and continues to do so. was just, that was sort of my end to actually trying to enjoy basketball. I know there were plenty of other players. I get it. Again, I know that all these picks are going to probably destroy me, but that was the one for me that I really was like, oh, this guy's really fun to watch, and this is amazing.
I just want to point out that our show airs on Bay Area television, so LeBron James may not have been your best pick, but if you have hate to send to Brendan, it's the BFF show on amp@gmail.com. Please let him know what you feel about the LeBron James pick, and we will literally talk about it on air for the next show. So if you have things to say to Brendan about that horrible pick, please send that to us, BFF show, the BFF show on amp.
I have a funny one for my obscure,
Keep
but
going.
you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No? Okay, fine. My obscure one isn't really that obscure, again, to Bay Area fans, but it's Jason Richardson, Michigan State player. Came in an amazing draft class with Troy Murphy. Maybe not so amazing. But Gilbert Arenas, when Gilbert Arenas was good, before he was threatening dudes in locker rooms with guns. But Jason Richardson was amazing. I remember the NBA had this rookie versus sophomore game. I think they still do it, actually, but I don't watch it anymore. Richardson literally took the basketball, bounced it off Carlos Boozer's head, caught it, and shot a three-pointer. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I loved him ever since then. And then he won 2 slam dunk competitions in a row, a feat not accomplished other than Michael Jordan at the time. So, he's just a cool dude. He's a great player for the Bay Area. I hated when they traded him. And he had this great thing. He would go to the NBA All-Star game for slam dunk competitions, and he refused to stay for the game with the argument that he would never stay unless he actually made the team of himself. Unfortunately, he never really made the team. But I think there was some oversights along the way. But he's also part of that amazing Baron Davis Warriors team. Just Jason Richardson, easy. And that's probably my favorite player of all time, even more than Rodman.
So, and then also to be clear too, I mean, we talked about on the show too, for me, I'm not a huge NBA fan anyway. So I'm going to gravitate, like I said, that's why LeBron's my pick, because that's what was exciting. So, but in my New York world, I remember just constantly hearing about Stephon Marbury. So that's why
Starbury, man.
Starbury. Because that's what I heard about when he had the discounted shoes and the athletic wear, which was actually good. It was accessible to kids. It made sense to parents. Yeah. And I just remember him getting killed for that. But it actually I liked the move because I thought it made sense. Because in a world where everybody had a shoe that was hundreds of dollars, Starbury was like, this is at Target and Walmart, and it's like $30. Have a great time. And then he moved to China, and he's been dominating out in China to the point where they released, and I think I shared this with you, a trailer for his life story that is the most intense trailer. I defy you to find a more intense trailer than that Chinese-produced film on Stephon Marbury's life, and it is incredible. We'll have to put it up on one of our social media, on our Facebook page, because it is hysterical. And have you seen it?
You showed it to me. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
You would have thought he won a war or something. It's the Unbroken, the horrible Angelina Jolie movie she made, where it's staged and getting more and more excessive. It's exactly like that with a basketball player.
You would have thought he won 5 NBA championships and 5 NBA Finals MVPs, and then went to China based on how they revere him. So that's to put that to bed. That's my NBA pick. So let's go to Major League Baseball, Franco. Who is your favorite player? All
right, my favorite player. This is a hard one because I have a lot of favorite players, but I'm going to go with Brian Wilson, closer, San Francisco Giants. And this is an interesting pick because he's only there from 2008 to 2011. And 2011 is a year we could probably all forget.
Yeah.
But just that torture team, the first team to win that championship in the Bay Area, just a special time. Again, big personality, brought a lot of attention to the team that wasn't there before. And his podcasts and radio interviews were incredible. He is entertaining. And here's a funny story. So, because it's story time on the BFF show. I almost called it the BOB show.
That's okay.
It's not that anymore.
I'll take it.
So, I was in Chicago interviewing for a job action. I went to a Giants. Actually, that's not true. I was in Pittsburgh, sorry, at a Pirates versus Giants game. And these kids kept throwing things onto the field to see if they get a ball from a player. And one kid threw his hat into the pitcher's dugout where Wilson was sitting. And they kept asking for the ball, and he looked at them. So he put the ball in the hat and then went to go throw it, and then changed his mind and dropped the ball in his hand and threw it to another kid, away from him, and then put the hat on and walked around the field for a while. And then he had to blow his nose and pretend to blow his nose in the hat. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Then threw the hat back to the kid, without a ball, mind you. But and when I say kid, let's give them a little deep. They were 15 and 16-year-old kids.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was a 6-year-old who he was like blowing his nose in the hat. But it was just a classic scene. It was like kind of encompassing that personality, and then what a nasty, nasty finisher. Like that fastball was amazing. And I'll never forget the scene of like him striking out Ryan Howard in the Phillies series. It was quintessentially Brian Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Plus his name is the same as a Beach Boy singer, which clearly has ties to the Bay Area, so we're going to go Brian Wilson for me.
Wish they all could be California girls.
I agree. I married a California girl, so there you go.
I didn't, so so for me, I think New York, I can't escape Derek Jeter because I actually saw him play a lot of times, and I think that's for me where, granted, the time period when I started really being invested. Yes, they won the championship. I believe it was 2009, and that was the last one that he won. But even so, the way that he carried himself, like having to be able to see, you read the hype and you see the hype and you're like, all right, this guy's probably full of crap when you actually see him live. He's probably not that kind to people and that interesting. And then you get to see him in play, and he actually does, like, he's doing the things that you read about. Like, he's talking to kids before he's about to jump on at bat. Like, he's taking practice swings and then talking to kids about where he's going to hit the ball. You can see him pointing and stuff and making their day. And so to me, like, I just enjoyed watching that guy play. Granted, the last year he played wasn't the best. It was sort of like when Kobe Bryant was on his retirement tour with the Lakers. It was like all about him, and the team was all right, but it was the last time that he was able to play, so they made a big deal about it, obviously. So for me, I think watching Derek Jeter play was always a ton of fun.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I was actually at Yankee Stadium for the final game in the bleachers to watch, and that was when Jeter
awesome.
Had that last hit.
Oh yeah, home run.
Yeah, I was there for that. It was pretty amazing. Jeter is quintessentially like the American baseball player of our era. Like, he kind of captures that Mickey Mantle-esque, playful. I mean, he has the baskets, he gives the women, but also like kind of a stand-up guy. Like, I like Jeter a lot for that reason. Again, story time. We were at that game, and we had paid, I think, old Yankee Stadium bleachers tickets used to be, what, like $15, $20?
Yeah.
Randy and Mike, my two buddies from the Army, he and I, we drove up there to New York City for this game. We paid $119 each for seats.
Wow.
And we were sitting, and it was a hot day because it's New York in the summer.
Yeah.
Or not summer, but you know what I mean. It's New York, and it's hot that day.
Yeah.
And there are these like 3 dudes behind us, and they're big dudes. And come third quarter, like these guys are just like, we're not going to use the words they use because we learned our lesson from that episode that got rejected. Some expletives. And like they had this conversation like, all right, man, we could say we were here. We've seen a third of the game. Can we just get out of here? And like they kept having this conversation, and my buddy turned around and he's like, how much did you pay for the tickets? Because they bought them at the door, and they're like $300. So these guys like got instructions from us how to find the subway and left at the third inning, basically leaving $1,000 of ticket like on the bleachers and missing Jeter's hit and the final out at Yankee Stadium because it was too hot.
Do you remember when we went to Yankee Stadium and I had the tickets to try to scalp, and I was really awkward about it? And,
yeah, it was awesome.
It was great. I got free tickets, and it ended up being a 4-pack. And you and I went, and we didn't have two other friends that wanted to go. So I was like, I'm going to just scalp these. So when I tried to, I saw some professionals on the street corner, and I was like, hey, will you buy these? And they were like, yeah, we'll give you $10. I was like, you want to do 20? And then they got mad because they're like, we know you got these for free. We're giving you money. I was like, okay, that's a fair point, sir. Thank you. And we took the money and ran. We went inside, and then we found out that the people next to us, because I was like, oh no, they got our tickets. Like, and we have to see.
Yeah.
Didn't they pay something like $50 per ticket or something ridiculous like that?
It was 70. They paid 70 per ticket.
Yeah, and I
and you
sold
definitely
them.
had the room to negotiate, but I remember you ran across the street by yourself first off, and then you were terrified, and like you just ran back, having taken $10 per ticket. But it bought us it bought us a beer and maybe half a hot dog.
I think it was like I got it 20 or 30 for both, but
I
it
think
was
you got
still
30 for both. So
I got 30 for both. So, but it was still a bummer when they got 70. They paid 70. I was like, damn it, it could have gone higher, but it was fun. Yeah, old Yankee Stadium. So, do you have one more MLB? Jeter was the only one that I had.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. My obscure player. This is really obscure. Washington Nationals. He played center field and second base. Nirjir Muhammad. Very short career. Kind of a jerk. Not even a little bit if you watch like his Brewers career after the Nationals. But if you watch like highlights, like he was an exciting player. He was quick, former track star. Didn't make the MLB till he was in his 30. I think he was 30 when he made the team. Like super cool story and just a really exciting player to watch. Watch the highlights. Ended up being kind of a not nice guy, but was fun to watch.
And let's move to the National Football League. Who was your favorite player to watch?
That's pretty easy. As a 49ers fan, I mean, I started watching in the 90s, so Jerry Rice was amazing to watch. Just he got open in so many different ways. He caught so many balls, got us championships. Such a great guy in the community. I was always engaged. It's an easy number one for me.
For me, easy number one, New York, Eli Manning. I know he may not be the best overall, but this is why it's fun to watch him, because when you have a player like, say, you have a Tom Brady, you have a Peyton Manning, you got a 90% chance that you're confident. You're always 90% to 100% confident that they're going to do really well. With Eli Manning, I've never felt confident that it's going to be a good game by him, because he has weird games where he'll throw like 4 picks and go 8 for 40, and then the next game he'll throw 5 touchdowns and have a 90% QBR overall rate. It's just he's inconsistent. But then when it counts, like in the 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots, he's phenomenal. And then he'll go back the next year, and you're like, who is this person? Why are they throwing so terribly? So to me, it was just ridiculous to watch Eli Manning, and that was what made it most exciting. He beat the Patriots and destroyed their chance for a perfect season, which I think everybody in America was so happy about.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you lived in New England. So I think he's always going to have credit for that. And then beating them again the second time was also hilarious. Like, those 2 instances were just funny, just in general. If you like football, you love those moments and you laughed at him like I did. But I think just the sheer fact that he was so wildly entertaining and inconsistent, and Eli Manning face where he seemed to not care, but he kind of cared. Like, you didn't know if anything fazed him or what he was thinking. He's just a blank slate when he gets sad, and he's happy. Same thing, blank slate. So fun person to watch.
I mean, I agree. And some fun facts about Manning.
Yeah.
I think he has the longest streak of an active quarterback without missing a game.
Yep.
He has the highest passing rating in Giants history.
Yep.
So there's lots of reason to like Eli Manning. He's just the less exciting brother.
Yeah.
He's
That's all it
basically
is.
Tito to Michael. Like, I'm sorry, man. You're good, but you're not as famous as your brother.
He's not going to get any real endorsements outside of the New York metropolitan area. That's the extent. He's not going to be Peyton Manning in the face of Nationwide Insurance or Papa John's. It's just like you'll see him do like a car dealership commercial every now and then, or maybe a Toyota of Massapequa or something like that. It might be something like that, but you're not going to see him at the national level.
I mean, I agree. And that's too bad. I think he's definitely a Hall of Fame quarterback, to be honest with you. I know it's not a popular thing, but if Kurt Warner makes the Hall of Fame, Eli Manning better be in the Hall of Fame.
I think you're right. It's the personality factor. It's like Eli's not exciting necessarily to talk to when as a reporter, because every interview I've seen, he just kind of says the same thing. He's very cliched, good game, gotta move on to the next, and that's it. Like, he's not going to be thoughtful like a Peyton Manning. He's not going to be entertaining like a Tom Brady. It's just he's Eli. He just shows up.
Yeah, I mean, he's no Broadway Joe. And we've learned that big personalities get you more attention, but. Yeah, and so my obscure player, and this is real obscure because he's only in the NFL, I think for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Did you like how I dropped the R off my obscure right there? Getting a little Bay Area hyphy. So we're going to go with Javid Best, Detroit Lions. Right. Like, he was an incredible player. I'm a big Cal fan. I love watching him play. And when he made the NFL, he was pretty amazing. The problem is that concussion. Like, he had 4 in college, got to the NFL, got another one, knocked him out of the league. But he was pretty impressive to watch. He's amazing. He was quick. He was kind of a Barry Sanders-esque player, which is, I know, hard to say, but he's kind of a modern Barry Sanders, and I wish we could have seen his career actually develop beyond that injury.
Mine, sticking with New York, random, Jeremy Shockey. Because he was he was good, but again, for me, I always look at the humor in the situation. It was the interplay between Eli Manning and Jeremy Shockey. Shockey in your face screaming, and Eli just standing there taking it for so long to the point where when they got rid of him, that's when Eli started to feel more confident, because you got rid of the guy that yelled at him all the time for missing him on an open play or feeling like he didn't get the ball enough. And Jeremy Shockey was just an insane person, constantly getting into fights, getting into trouble. And then he went to the Saints, kind of did the same thing, but then quieted out. And then he's not in the league anymore, I think. I forget where he wound up in his last team.
No, he actually does guest spots on NFL Network occasionally.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like, he's got the mouth for it. I mean, sure, but
he definitely has the mouth for it. I'll say
yes, that. He definitely does. So I think my most obscure, just watching the sidelines of Giants game and just seeing him being so mad at Eli, and Eli just standing there and taking it, hilarious.
Shockey is kind of the Jose Canseco
of
football, but only if Jose Canseco wasn't that good and was kind of mediocre. Like that's who Jeremy Shockey is.
So that I think that should wrap up our. We'll do this again. We should probably, because I can think of more.
We could definitely
Maybe.
revisit it, I think.
I
I
feel
mean, if
like
I understood
I'm-
hockey, I could tell you. I don't know any hockey players. I know Alexander Ovechkin, and
Yeah.
only because in DC they used to have these like behind the scenes with him.
Yeah.
And that dude's a madman. Like, I'm surprised he's still alive. Like, he's crazy. Like, fast cars, lots of booze. Like, your stereotypical like Eastern European
Yeah.
hockey player. That's all I know about hockey. That's all I got.
I'm just embarrassed by my picks compared to yours, if I'm being honest, because I feel like I'm not a full-fledged sports fan.
I think after you've been on radio for 6 years talking about sports, you can be a sports fan. We're going to give you
Yay!
the sports fan card.
Can you flash that on the bottom? I'm asking you to do more complicated edits. Can you just be like certified sports fan and flash that in
I
like
can
really
definitely
crappy
do that.
graphics? That'd be wonderful.
Last week, I actually figured out how to flash the Rocks picture.
Oh,
Friend
okay,
of the
cool.
show, Dwayne. So I can
Friend
do
of
that
the
with
show.
certified sports fan.
Okay, yes,
Not a
please do
problem.
that. So before we end, we'll just do, I know that we don't know when this is going to air, but let's just be real. This is airing right at the beginning of the All-Star break for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get into, who's leading and an analysis of the first half, because we both kind of agree it's like you could, but more often than not, it means nothing. It's really what happens after the All-Star break that
Yep.
everything starts to make sense. And especially, we haven't had the trade deadline hit yet, so there's a lot of things that could happen. But speaking of the All-Star game of itself, do you care about it? And we brought this up on the old show, and the
Yeah.
idea behind, do you care about the home run derby? Do you care about the game itself? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I used to care about the home run derby, but then they've tried all these gimmicks with it, like East versus West, team captains. I don't care anymore. And I really dislike the idea that the World Series home team is determined by the All-Star game. And I guess it does makes the game mean more, but it's still not well watched and it's still not followed. And basically, you're letting a game that doesn't matter with an unsteady pitching rotation determine a big part of who wins the championship. I think you should go back to the old way where whoever had the best record, that was the home team coming to the World Series. But personal opinion, I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. I'll watch the highlights. I might Google who won the home derby. I'll watch the furthest shot on YouTube because that's where we live in now. I think All-Star Weekend, until they kind of bring it more back to the classical area and kind of enhance it a little bit, it's going to fall victim to the way of the internet.
And I think that was the problem, is that, there used to be a financial incentive, and there still is, to playing the All-Star game, but compared to what the players are making now and what they could potentially make if they reach certain milestones, if you have that type of contract with your team, it's not really, for you as a player, in my opinion, of real interest for you to go all out in the All-Star game to care. And I think they tried to make that, instill that feeling again by making it the World Series, then you get the home field advantage if you win. But again, I agree with you. It just doesn't make any sense, because when the World Series comes around, I forget that, and I'm always like, oh, the Cubs have the best record. I think it was last year, maybe compared to the Cleveland Indians, or maybe it was vice versa. I don't remember. But either way, I was like, oh, that's great. They should be the one. Then it ended up not being that way. I was like, because the All-Star game determined who has home field advantage. It just seems insane. And I think as far as the home run derby, I don't really care. I mean, the last one I vaguely remember was Josh Hamilton at Yankee Stadium, and they made a big deal about that. And there was it was exciting, blah blah blah. But then I don't recall who won last year even. I mean, it just doesn't hit me, and I don't know if people care about it as much as they think that that MLB thinks that we do.
I mean, the era of baseball has changed. Home runs are down because we're not in the steroid era anymore, and that kind of took away some of the luster from the home run competition. And I think we won't see the All-Star game matter until baseball does away with guaranteed contracts.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that helps the Pro Bowl for NFL, which is still kind of a joke, is that they're not guaranteed contracts, and a lot of them have that clause in their contract. So making the Pro Bowl is a big deal in that year because that's money you get, and you're not guaranteed any money after that, so they're always playing to get into the Pro Bowl. Whereas with the All-Star game, like, all these guys are on guaranteed contracts. They could play one year, be playing in a softball beer league the next year, and still get the same money.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't hold the same luster.
And I think so. Both of us. So come Tuesday, we're not watching the game, right?
No, I'll watch ESPN and see the highlights. And if it goes extra innings, I'll be watching Twitter and I'll hop on for extra innings, but that's the extent of it.
Twitter has made it more interesting because the comments end up being more entertaining than the actual game, and then the ability to kind of live commentary from people that you follow and know is sometimes more interesting than the commentary you get on the TV screen, particularly in baseball. So I think that's probably what I'll be doing as well. And honestly, with the time difference, I probably will forget because it's happening on the East Coast, and I think it starts around like 4 or 5 o'clock Pacific time, and I won't remember. I'll be driving, so by the time I get home, it might be all done. So who cares? But Franco, we do have to start wrapping this thing up. You have not seen Baby Driver yet. When you do, I want to talk to you about it. So that's the one thing. I also saw Spider-Man this weekend. I want to talk to you about that. So my lesson for today, what I learned is that you need to go see the movies.
All right, that's a good lesson. And I think this is called the tease. So the next time you see us, we will review Baby Driver and Spider-Man Homecoming and talk about comic book movies in general because we like doing that. So tune in theoretically next week, or follow us on YouTube, the BFF Show on YouTube. You can follow us there.
Put the link on the bottom of our screens.
Okay. All right. Look, you can give me notes about editing after, maybe not during the show. Because what happens if I forget, and then you're just doing this thing on screen and it makes no sense? I'll do that. And what I learned this week, I learned that your sports history needs to be built upon. But the good news is you're going to keep building if you stay a sports fan. So don't worry if you started late. It's a long game, Lord willing, and you'll have time to be a sports fan as time goes on. So don't worry about it. Come back to this hopefully when the BFF show is in its 5th year. You'll have a little more frame of reference.
30 years from now, I'm going to be able to really have a solid discussion about LeBron James, and I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a super hot take for all the youngsters that aren't even born yet, and they haven't seen LeBron in his prime.
Yeah, when the NBA repeals that whole age rule with college and everything else, we'll have this conversation 30 years from now. Like, who was the best player coming out of high school? Remember that guy, LeBron?
And I'll be like, oh, I know him. I saw him. And people will be like, what was that like? Then I'll be cool. All right. For the BFF show, my name is Brendan.
I'm Franco.
And we will see you next week. Bye.
The Rock says you should know your role and shut your mouth.